Mike Damergis along with Joe D'Aloisio for New York Gridiron Recap. And Joe, an ugly night for both home teams. The Giants playing without Odell Beckham. No problem, right? They got Brandon Marshall, rookie tight end Evan Ingram. Wrong. Things did not go well. For Eli Manning, he struggled all night despite completing 29 of 38 passes, 1 INT. The Giants couldn't get their run game going. The backfield with only 35 yards on the ground. And had the ball for only 24 minutes, something that, Coach McAdoo was not pleased in the least bit.
I don't think any part, I know no part of the offense was functional tonight.
Did you consider making any changes on the offensive line tonight?
Again, it's you can't just point the finger at one person or one position when you have an outing like that.
There's a couple stunts or twists. It seems like that's something that keeps coming up.
I agree.
Why do you think that this is a problem?
Because we're struggling to block it.
Is it individual effort?
It's a combination. It's technique.
How do you fix it?
Get better at your technique.
I assume you tried to do that, though. You tried to do that the last couple of weeks, right?
Next question.
Next question. Bob McAdoo getting testy. And you really can't blame him, Joe. I mean, this was a porous performance by the Giants.
Yeah, a terrible overall performance. And if you go back and you listen to McAdoo right there, one thing that really stuck out is he said you can't point a finger at one position. And I think he's totally wrong when he says that, because the biggest problem with the New York Giants is their offensive line. That entire unit struggled last night. And if that entire unit continues to struggle, I don't care if you have Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Brett Favre, whoever back there, your quarterback is going to struggle, and clearly Eli struggled last night.
And it was talked about all spring into the summer. A lot of it was blanketed by that you brought Brandon Marshall in, and the defense played well in the preseason. But this is ugly because not only they can't block and protect Eli, the franchise guy, they can't block for their runners who are marginal at best. So you don't have an offensive line. You don't have a running game. Odell Beckham is hurt, and you don't know what you have in your young tight end yet. And Brandon Marshall, they only targeted 4 times. So a lot to be concerned about from the New York Giants.
And, I mean, you could have all the skill players possible, all the wide receivers, the weapons, the running backs, all the talent that you need. But if you don't have that front to open up holes, to protect the quarterback, to give the quarterback at least 3 seconds to throw the ball, you're not going to have a successful offense. And if the Giants don't find a way, and I'm not trying to overreact here, but if they do not find a way to fix this offensive line, they're going to be in big trouble this season.
And a lot of holes last night, a lot of mistakes, and Eli Manning is, not pointing the finger at anybody.
The whole offense needs to make improvements, and starting with me. So, I got to do a better job. I got to be better prepared and lead this team better. So, I'll start with me and go from there.
Okay, so Eli Manning again, not pointing fingers at anybody, but. You know what? It was a bad performance. It was bad play selection, not trying to go downfield, not trying to get Brandon Marshall the ball. There was, in a situation like this, when you don't have your star receiver, and look, Odell Beckham in the playoffs is known to drop a couple of passes here and there, but at least he's a threat. You got to be creative. You got to throw in some reverses here. You got to be very creative, and I didn't see any creativity, which is surprising for a Bob McAdoo offense. You'd expect an offensive genius like him to throw in some nuances.
And a typical Eli response there, coming out, not pointing any fingers at anybody, saying the right things. He can't throw his teammates under the bus. Yes, he had a terrible performance, but again, it starts with that offensive line. And yes, I agree. They need to get Brandon Marshall involved. I think this Odell Beckham Jr. injury, this is going to be one that's going to affect them all season long, because you know how those ankle injuries are. Those are lingering injuries, so I wouldn't be surprised if Odell struggles. But one thing that we did notice, that this offense is completely different with Beckham, and if one thing is certain, he is going to get paid because of this. This shows why and how valuable Odell Beckham is to this entire unit.
And with the Giants' offense only eating up 24 minutes, that means the defense was on the field quite a bit for over 34 minutes. And eventually they were bending, and Dallas got the big plays.
2nd and 8. Short drop and a first down, and Des Bryant scoots away, and Collins will be taken for a ride all the way down to the 45-yard line.
And, of course, let me correct that. I was talking about Ben McAdoo, not Bob McAdoo.
Not Bob McAdoo.
Thinking about the New York Knicks. You got to understand the era I grew up in, so I apologize for that. But, yeah, the Giants' defense was making plays, but they were keeping the offense in the game, but they were still getting pushed around. And eventually, they just wore out. And the Dallas offensive line, most impressive. Most impressive.
Absolutely, and that offensive line was great last season. Easily the best offensive line in the NFL. And you see what that does. Here you have Dak Prescott, second-year quarterback, who came out and looked impressive once again. And it's a lot easier to go out there and play a game when you're protected the way he does, and not to mention when you have a run game with Ezekiel Elliott that they do. So that definitely helps them. And going back to the Giants here for a second, that defense is super talented. That defense has top 5 potential. The problem is if they're always on the field, they're never going to get a rest. Naturally, these guys are going to be tired. They're going to get beat up, and offenses are going to take advantage of them. If you look, it's not like Dallas did anything too special last night.
No, they basically ran down their throat. And look, the Giants have playmakers. They got snacks in the middle. They got a pass rusher in JPP. They've got corners. They've got safeties. They've got playmakers on defense. This team is a championship defense, but you know what? They're going to be tested right away against Detroit next week.
Oh, absolutely, and I could guarantee Detroit comes out firing against these guys and notices they're going to be looking at the tape and notice the deficiency. Expect the pressure to come next week because the same way that that offensive line crumbled against Dallas, they're going to have problems all year long. That's going to be the downfall of this team.
Speaking of downfalls, and to me, the Jets are right on track to go 0-16 and get a quarterback with the number 1 pick, so I'm ecstatic at this. The Jets are who we thought they are. They stunk up the joint in Buffalo on both sides of the ball. They couldn't run it, and they couldn't stop it.
A lot of missed assignments. There were a lot of missed assignments.
Is that coaching, or is that
It's both. We got to coach it better. They got to play it better.
And that's just being mild right there. As far as Bowles talking about on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball, Buffalo basically pushed them around. At least the front 7 was supposed to be something. At least the front 4 for the Jets was supposed to be something special. It did not look it as Shady McCoy basically ran down their throat.
And again, it goes right back to the other New York team, the offensive line. And I think here's another issue with the New York Jets, along with every other issue that this team has. Now, let's not forget they have no quarterback. They are a complete disaster at that position, and it makes absolutely no sense that Josh McCown is even starting for this team. But again, it goes back to the offensive line. If you don't have an offensive line, there's no way you will have a successful offense.
And Shady McCoy running for over 100 yards yesterday, and getting in running and receiving the ball as well.
Burris has come in the nickel for the Jets. Second down and 20 for Taylor. Gets it off to LaShawn McCoy. Makes a miss. LaShawn McCoy. He's gained more yards from scrimmage than any other player the last couple of years in the NFL, and weaving his way for 21.
And the Jets could only muster 38 yards on the ground between Forte and Powell. Some questions, too, as far as why wasn't Powell given some more opportunities? And that was posted to Todd Bowles yesterday.
Yeah, you know what? And I agree with that. What I saw from Matt Forte is his age. He is now 31, turning 32 in December, and he just doesn't look like the same player. Again, you have a terrible offensive line, though. You can't really judge it that much. But it would have been better to see a little bit more of Bilal Powell just to see if he could get anything going. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for him. The one bright side on the offensive side, though, is the wide receiver that they just brought in, Jermaine Kearse. I mean, granted, you don't have a quarterback that is throwing you the ball, but the one positive was that he was able to get a solid amount of, he had seven receptions for 59 yards. So he was definitely able to contribute. And that's a guy, a veteran there that hopefully once the Jets find their quarterback, that they can keep around to help groom their younger wide receivers, and it would be a good number 1 for a rookie quarterback coming in.
I don't know where they go from here because as Todd Bowles said, they can't run the ball and they can't stop the ball. Coming up.
And you know what?
We can't run the ball and can't stop the run. We're going to have a problem.
You think so, Todd?
Yeah, I mean,
you think you're gonna have a problem? Really?
Pretty obvious. If you can't stop it, you can't run it, you can't throw it, you can't do anything. It's gonna be a long season. And What's puzzling to me, and I'm starting to believe this, so Josh McCown's a starter, right? You have Christian Hackenberg has his own problems. He's nowhere near ready. But you have Bryce Petty there. I am convinced that the Jets organization is afraid that if they start Bryce Petty, he may actually win games for this team. And I'm not saying they'll win 4 or 5 games, but even a couple games, and that ruins their plan.
Afraid of what? Giving their fans something to root for?
Yeah, because I think...
What are they afraid of?
I mean,
they're losing their fan base.
We just listened...
They're driving fans away, Joe.
We just listened to Todd Bowles, and this is after week 1, and he already sounds defeated.
Wait a second. Let's hear this again.
We can't run the ball and can't stop the run. We're going to have a problem.
I mean...
we got a problem. Houston, we got a problem.
And this is just week 1. It's only going to get worse as the season goes on. I mean, so here's what I don't understand is... It seems as if they have taken over what the media has said about them, that they won't win a game. They're tanking for that new quarterback. So here we are. We're going to probably have to stick and watch Josh McCown for 16 games unless he gets hurt. But
he's getting hurt. You don't think with that offensive line that he's going to last 60? I mean, he's lucky if he sees October.
I personally, yeah, exactly. There's no way he's going to last.
They're going to need 3 quarterbacks just to finish the season. And they're all going to be in the mash unit, just like Mets pitching.
And that'll be a disaster because then at the end, Bryce Petty will win a few games for you. And it's crazy because you look back and even NFL Network's Ian Rappaport came out over the summer saying, let's not forget that there were 2 teams that were interested in Bryce Petty over the summer, but the Jets weren't willing to give him away. So if that's the case...
If he's not... Why wouldn't they... if he's not... The guy's not starting, why aren't you giving him away?
Well, that basically to me says that this kid has potential. And if that's the case, he should be in. There's no reason that Josh McCown should be in.
Well, there is a reason. Unless Jets ownership is in the same mind as I am and the Jets fans. Let's go 0-16. What's the difference if we go 8-8? I've been watching Jet games since 1981. Every Jet game that's been played. I don't need another 8-8 season. I don't need another 6-10 season. I don't need another 4-12 season. Give me 0-16. We've never done that.
Okay, but
we've been 1-15 when Keyshawn Johnson came in '95 under the great genius of Rich Kotite. Okay, the genius that was going to change things around, and this was Leon Hess, his boy. It was Rich Kotite with a disaster that year. 1-15 and 3-13 the next year. Give me 0-16. I haven't had that as a Jet fan.
0-16, yeah, great. But let me remind you that there is no guarantee that number 1 pick is your franchise quarterback. You may get an Andrew Luck or you may get a Jamarcus Russell. It's really luck of the draw.
You could get a Ryan Leaf that many people thought was better than Peyton Manning, so that is possible.
Exactly. So, everyone is claiming 0-16, let's tank. But there is no guarantee that next guy is going to be your franchise quarterback. Time will tell. That's about all you can say. But I think it's a little strange that Bryce Petty hasn't gotten the opportunity that he really deserves.
One more thing before we go.
We can't run the ball and can't stop the run. We're going to have a problem.
It's going to be a long season.
Houston, we got a problem. Any chance this week as they head out west?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think so.
There's no way they're going to be able to contain the Raiders.
No, absolutely. Marshawn Lynch will have a field day, and Derek Carr will light that. You know what? Derek Carr may not light up that secondary because I did like what I saw from rookie safety Jamal Adams. He was great. He was all over the field.
The one bright spot.
That is really the one bright spot, even though we've been crushing the Jets. The one bright spot all over the field, forced fumble. So credit to him. But the Raiders will have their day next week.
Mo Wilkerson 1 tackle, and Todd Bowles after the game basically said, "Oh, I'll have to look at the tape and see if he was double teamed." You mean Mo's not coming back and saying, "Hey, man, I'm being double teamed. Can I get some help? Can I get some help in the guys are all over me? Can you give me a little break here?"
Again, like I said, it sounds already like Todd Bowles is already defeated, and it's only
we
week
can't
1.
run the ball and can't stop the run. We're gonna have a problem.
All right, that wraps things up for week 1 of New York Gridiron Recap. He's Joe D. I'm Mike Damergis.